Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
We have this morning with us Aarthi Dhar, a senior journalist from Delhi who belongs to Kashmir and the Kashmiri Pandit community. Aarthi, welcome to NRI Samay Radio and thank you for sparing time for us. We would like to know what exactly happened to your family and under what circumstances when you people had to leave Kashmir.
See, my father was in the government service and he held a very sensitive post at that point in time. He was a director of information, which was a very sensitive posting. And if I remember, I had just come to Delhi looking for a job, and my sister and my mother had were in Jammu for a wedding. So my father was there, and then Kashmiris normally have a joint family, and their extended family was there. So it was within days after the killing of director Doordarshan, late Mr. Lassakal, that around midnight it was sometime in January, that the Director General of Police called up my father, and he said, "We have arrested one person, and we have seen your name in the list now." So after the killing of Director General of Doordarshan, my father was the next target. So immediately a vehicle was sent, and my father and my uncle and aunt were asked to leave the place. So it was around midnight that they were asked to leave with basic minimums like some documents and some cash which was in the house, that they were asked to leave, and they left at around 1 or 1:30 in the morning and reached Jammu sometime early in the morning. So that is how it was, and everything was left behind. So much so that even the locker we could not operate, and it was opened after several years. So that is how we left. Then my father had to go back because he had to do his duty, but he was put up in a security zone in Raj Bhavan where all other officers were there. So that's how our story started.
What exactly was the circumstances there?
See, it was as simple as that no non-Muslims would stay there, because Kashmiri Pandits had always been seen as agents, quote unquote, of India in the valley. And any attack on Kashmiri Pandits would mean attacking Indian representation in the valley. So the moment you attack or you force Kashmiri Pandits to leave, that means you are hurting the very fabric of democracy and secularism or federalism or whatever, the government of India.
Aarthi, for the benefit of our new listeners who are not too familiar with this part of history of Kashmir, could you tell us which year was that, and what sort of threats were given in general to Kashmiri Pandit community?
See, this was 1999, January of 1999, when the migration actually happened. But this had been happening for many years with a spurt of militant attacks beginning in sometime in 87, 88, then in peaks in 90. And the kind of threats were like killing of people, killing of prominent personalities in broad daylight, so that there's fear in the community, kidnapping of women, raping of women. Of course, if you go by numbers, you may say it were only 10 or 12 women or 10 or 12 men who were killed. But do not forget the fact that Kashmiri Pandits were only, they were only about less than 1% of the entire valley population. So even if the number was 10, it meant a lot more. It was, if people say only 10 people were killed, that doesn't mean anything because the population was so less.
So you feel that was a message to rest of the community to fall in line, or the similar fate would be met them?
Obviously. See, let me go back into history. The thing is, there were no jobs for Kashmiri Pandits in the sense, all, being a minority community, we were already disadvantaged because preference would be given to a majority community, and all institutions would prefer majority community. And Kashmiri Pandits were in any case leaving the valley. From a huge chunk of population, we had just come down to less than 1%. And even among those, the younger generation, see, when I was young, people, my cousins and my friends, men, I'm not talking about women, men and boys were leaving for jobs, for better pastures outside of the valley or going abroad.
Yeah.
And obviously when women would marry, they would also go. So as it is, we were leaving the valley. But this one blow just pushed us out, in one go. That is how it happened.
There were reports that such threats were announced on loudspeakers publicly.
Yeah. From mosques, and 2 or 3 militant organizations put out press releases which were published in all newspapers, Urdu papers, asking Kashmiri Pandits to leave the valley or face elimination, whatever.
So it is quite some time. It is decades since this had started happening, and so many killings had taken place. And now, at times, governments talk about rehabilitation and Kashmiri Pandits going back to valley. Which do you think had been the most sincere effort by any government in this direction, if there was an attempt at all?
See, it's very difficult to say that Kashmiri Pandits will go back, or there'll be integration. It's not physical presence in the valley, but it's that faith which has gone. Faith and mutual respect among the communities. That is not to say that we are enemies now, but that sense of faith is not there, among the two communities. Okay, you may go, you will stay there for 3 or 4 days holiday and come back. But let me give you my example. If I go back there, what will I do? I have an established life here. I resettle myself, have a social life here, have a job or whatever.
Yeah.
When I go back there, there's no space for me, whether professionally or socially. There's no place. So I don't think anyone can live without social space, social freedom, or a job, or any sense of security. Even when we go there now, there's always a fear that, maybe we'll get caught in a crossfiring, or maybe we are being followed, or maybe whatever. So those people there are very nice. When I go, friends are there. They take me out. I spend time with them. It's really nice. We get very emotional when we go back, meeting the same old people. But just tell me, who can guarantee our safety there? Suppose the locals may not do anything. We go back, we settle there, and one fine morning we see some armed people coming and gunning us down. So who can ensure our security? It's as simple as that.
Aarthi, what happened to property of Kashmiri Pandits who had to leave? Did they get any compensation, or they are yet to get it?
No, see, most of the property was sold in distress. It was distress sale. So houses or buildings worth lakhs were sold at a very less cost.
So you people did not get appropriate payment?
No, at that point in time, it was appropriate, I suppose, what the government gave at various levels, various times. But if you consider it now, I mean, it was a very measly thing. And compensation has only been given for houses, not for land, not for orchards, not for other immovable property.
What exactly was the reason, Aarthi, why Kashmiri Pandits issue wasn't taken by many political parties in India except BJP or some Hindu organizations? Why Kashmiri Pandits issue was just left orphaned?
See, there are various reasons for that. Kashmiri Pandits, one, we are not a vote bank, right? We are a very small percentage of, as I told you, less than 1%. And now We are scattered all over, so we don't matter whether we vote for anyone or we don't. It doesn't matter because we are so small in numbers. Second is people don't talk about us, about our resettlement, because government of India, whichever government it is, for them Kashmiri Pandits represent the displaced people of Kashmir Valley who have a stake there. So if we are settled, then they have nothing to show to the world. Today, what they do is, when you talk of Kashmir issue, then government of India will say, okay, we have this community which has been displaced. They have a stake there, so we can't resolve any Kashmir problem without taking them into consideration. So that is one thing. Second thing is, it also be that governments don't want to admit that they have failed in dealing with Kashmir issues. At various points in time. So that could be another reason. If they settle us, then everything is hunky dory.
Did you find any difference in attitude of PDP or the Abdullah government in Kashmir or UPA and NDA in Delhi in rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits?
Let me be very honest to you. Every political setup talks about Kashmiri Pandits when it suits them. Okay. And if you talk of BJP, everybody says that Kashmiri Pandits are more inclined towards BJP. If they are, they have a reason. When the migration happened, lots of Kashmiri Pandits were given jobs by Delhi government. Like, we still have that reservation. Whether it's good or bad is another issue. I'm not going into that. They still have reservation for Kashmiri migrants, of course, which is meant also for non-Kashmiri Pandits who have migrated from Valley. It's not exclusive for Kashmiri Pandits.
I see.
So let us be clear on that. Even Kashmiri Muslims or Punjabis who are residents of permanent residents of Kashmir Valley can also get reservation. So all these benefits were given to us at that point in time, which were really needed. Now we may not need them, but at that point in time, so we have this, some feeling behind our back that, okay, when we were displaced, this government kind of came to our rescue. Now, when you talk of the present dispensation, everybody talks about infrastructure, developing a township. Okay, that is important. I agree. But if you're talking of integration, I don't know how that integration will happen. I still have my doubts. See, it's as simple as that the generation which was born after migration, they don't feel that emotional bonding with the valley. So they don't even want to go back. Most of them can't even understand Kashmiri or can't even speak Kashmiri. So they don't identify themselves with Kashmir Valley. So they don't even want to go back. It's like generation of ours or my parents who were born there, brought up there, who feel very strongly about the valley. For others, it's like another holiday place.
You gave a very, very detailed and a very unique description of Kashmiri Pandits' pain, suffering, and what they could be feeling today to us. And now I would like to come to some contemporary issues other than Kashmiri Pandits' issue, because you had been in Kashmir for substantial amount of your life and then settled in Delhi working in mainstream media. Could you tell us something about India's mainstream media and its attitude towards Kashmir as an issue, as a subject? Because so many Kashmiris, they feel that Delhi media or mainstream media, it covers them only when there is an act of terror, whenever there is an attack or encounter or demonstration, but not rest of the time. So what do you think and feel about it?
See, when there was migration or when there was militancy in Valley, like when there was militancy in Punjab, there were no private channels, there were no private media. At that point in time, there were only a few newspapers. There was no electronic television or, electronic media or various channels. Or even foreign media presence of foreign media was also very little. So when we think, of the times militancy happened in Kashmir Valley or this huge community was displaced, it wasn't beamed on TVs like you see it today, like you saw in Gujarat riots or various other incidents which happened after 90s.
Yeah.
So when you talk of those things, no, you feel that our issue was not highlighted.
Yeah.
It could be partly because there were no television channels.
Yeah, and you cannot compare that situation with media's state of affairs today.
Yes, that is one thing that has to be kept in mind. And second is, not many people at that point in time were even aware of what Article 370 was, what the Kashmir issue was. People became aware of the issue only when this migration happened. And at that point in time, only what the government would say. Because language papers there did give a lot of information.
Yeah.
Some of which was not always correct, was biased.
Yeah.
But then it was not reaching the outside world. It was only confined to locals. And what happens normally is, you would know as a journalist, when people from outside or maybe outside the state or outside the country, reporters visit a valley, they also depend on local media, isn't it? When you travel. So what you get is a sense of what the local media gives, a sense of what local media feels. And local media there is predominantly of one community.
Yeah.
And they feel the same.
Yeah.
So what went out was also a one side of the story.
Yeah.
And whatever little Kashmiri Pandits representation was there in media, they had already moved out of the valley.
Yeah.
So they didn't have a voice.
Yeah, but
now,
yeah. Let us discuss it from a non-Kashmiri Pandits perspective. As Kashmir as a whole, Kashmiris feel that rest of the India doesn't treat them as part of India, and they have a feeling that there is somebody Indian and we are Kashmiris, and then there is a separatist movement going on. And there is some amount of resentment and protest against the government of India, Indian flag. It is going on since ages. What exactly is the situation there? How many people? Is it just a visible, a small minority on streets pelting stone on security forces and burning flag? Or the majority of community or a large section of that has grievances against the government of India in Delhi or to rest of India?
See, I don't know what kind of grievances they talk about, but a majority of them don't feel part of India for whatever reasons. They've never been able to spell it out. Whether it's their religion, it's their proximity to some other country, they're not very clear about it. But one thing is, even if it's a small group, which I don't believe it's a small group, even if it is a small group, then the threat of their presence is huge. So sometimes others are also forced to agree with them. And those who do not agree with them are in a very small minority, and they don't have a voice. So they don't talk. They'll just keep quiet. They won't protest. They won't raise their voice against such forces.
So are you
like that?
Are you finding it slightly tough to measure the size of this section which is against India?
No. A major chunk is against India.
I see.
I was just giving you an example. A major chunk is against India. They don't even feel part of India.
You were very much around when this issue of Kashmir and pro-Pak slogans, doctored or otherwise, were raised in JNU, and some of the students were arrested, and sedition charges were slapped on them. So, how do you interpret this government's act against these students? And doctored tapes were played, and JNU as a center of open flow of cross-section of thoughts, and the issue of Kashmir in special context to Kashmir. How do you interpret this whole situation?
See, there's very little clarity even now. I feel that whether they were doctored or they were not doctored, whatever was shown on television, I'm going only by that. I wasn't present there at that point in time. Some say it was doctor, some say it was not, whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, see, there's a very thin line dividing between what you describe as freedom to speech and what what goes as anti-national or pro some other country. So there's a very thin line dividing. Some would say even if you don't agree with Indian federalism or Indian government, it's fine to criticize.
Yeah.
It's fine to criticize. It's okay with us. But then, running down the country or the government is not freedom of speech. So how do you differentiate? There's no clear line. There's no division. And if you ask me, it has happened in JNU. Maybe some people are saying it used to happen earlier also. I'm not aware of that. But in the valley, it was a very, very, very normal thing. Even when I was in school, that was many years ago. So we are quite used to this kind of a thing. Every time there was a cricket match and India would lose, many a times we wouldn't even go to school or college because we knew what was going to happen.
That was Kashmir.
That was Valley, yeah. That was Kashmir. I'm talking about Kashmir. So we would just keep quiet and, not even react. But the difference now is if you do the same thing in outside colleges, there's another group which reacts. And this reaction has become more strong because of maybe the present dispensation at the center. They feel they'll get support. Whereas in the earlier times, I think maybe they wouldn't have got support or they would have probably been even in a worse position. I think that is the difference. People from the other side have now started reacting. Earlier we would say, okay, let them say, it doesn't matter, this and that. Now it matters, I suppose. I think that is the only difference.
Now it is being noticed and protested against.
Yes. Earlier we would just keep quiet because we knew such protests, wouldn't get support from anywhere. And
Aarthi, you have just said one line, and I would like you to clarify that. You have said that running down the country, our government is not freedom. So do you really mean running down the government is not freedom?
Running down the government means saying that Bharat ki barbadi.
No, but that is not government. That is the country.
It's a country. Maybe I didn't use the appropriate word, but
that is why I wanted to put it on record again.
I think that was just an inappropriate word to use. But running down the country.
Yeah, but running down the government, I'm sure you would consider it is people's freedom if they wanted to run down a government.
That is fine. That is fine. I mean, you can criticize the government as. That's what democracy is all about.
Yeah. Tell me one thing. The issue of Kashmir being raised in slogans with flags on streets, on campuses, and the ban on beef and other such emotional issues in air these days. Is it dividing and polarizing Kashmiri community to a greater extent? Because in Rajasthan, some Kashmiri students were beaten or arrested in a hostel on charges that they were cooking or eating beef. So beef, do you think, is an issue which is dividing Hindu and Muslim or Dalits, tribals and the Savarna community? Or in this context, Kashmiris who are settled everywhere and who are probably easier to identify as Muslim or Kashmiri, they would be segregated to a greater extent instead of the integration which is needed?
Yeah, when we were there, that was until 90s, both pork and beef were banned in the state. So I don't know the status now, but at that point in time, both were banned because there was mutual respect for each other's religion, and
I see.
That is what I describe integration.
Yeah.
So I don't know the status now.
Yeah.
Let me be very honest.
Yeah.
But as far as all this beef and all issue, I'm realizing now how important these were, because in our times these were no issues at all.
Yeah.
We knew what was to be allowed and what was not to be allowed.
Yeah.
So as far as Rajasthan is concerned, I'm told that this is based on media reports. I'm told that they had signed a bond that they would not cook non-vegetarian food. So if that is the case, then what they did was wrong.
Yeah.
Whether it's beef or it was mutton or it was pork, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
So then it was wrong if they had signed a bond. But if they had not, then I don't think it was called for.
I mean, let me confess my ignorance. I didn't really know that beef and pork were banned in Kashmir at any given time in the history. I wasn't aware of it.
In the entire state.
I see. That's very interesting to know. And I mean, that was really height of integration because
Yes.
eating habits are always considered with a huge amount of liberty, personal liberty. And if there was such a great mutual trust between the two communities and respect for each other, that was really, really important.
Yes.
So, Aarthi, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you. Welcome.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.